All right, welcome to evidence-based audio and education. This time it's actually education. Number 211. This is compression 101. Um, recently, you guys who know me know I charge probably way too little for what I should be doing in it. I've heard that it actually hurts the people around me by charging so little as well. Um, I've always kind of done it because I'm never sure how my health is going to be. I don't want to hold anybody up, but I realize that my rates need to come up by a lot. And while I'm researching my rate sheet, I find out that guys who are, I'm not kidding, charging 4 to 6 times as much as I normally do, don't even know the most basic things about audio routing or signals or compression. And so I just want to talk a little bit about that stuff in case you don't know. Or maybe you'll see some new ways of doing some things that you didn't know before. I'm not exactly the heaviest compression user. I generally use compressors actually kind of as volume controls. Like, theoretically people use them. I've only recently even put compressors on the mix bus, and I'm still not sure how much I like that versus having my mastering engineer do that. I kind of get the sound I want, or at least I used to. I get the sound I want just from the individual tracks, and they didn't really want anything happening on the mix bus. But lately I've been trying it, and by lately I mean maybe the past 10 years, and I kind of like it, but I don't know. But let's just talk about some basics. Okay, let's see. So I grabbed this is Savage Grooves. This is something from Spectre Media. They have like a whole pile of tracks you can download. This one we were actually testing. One of the things that actually Alex and Glenna announced at NAMM. So I'll just play this for what it is for right now. And first of all, this is extremely well recorded. Check this out. So here's the inside kick mic. And I don't know how edited this is or whatever, but this is perfect. Like, this is stuff, you wouldn't be sample replacing or anything because it's ready to go. That's the inside mic. Here's the outside mic. I mean, man, that is a dream to have drums played like that, right? Here's those two together. Just throw some EQ on and you got a mix. And then he also has one of those sub whatever, like maybe it's an NS10 speaker in front of it or a bass cab. A little car stereo thump there. I used to use this stuff. I don't really do it anymore, but this is such good stuff. This ain't an advertisement for it, but let me just show you. There's other places you can download really good songs to mix. What's the one called? It's the Cambridge MT. It's Mike from Sound on Sound, I think. But this one. I don't know how much does this cost. This is 30 songs worth of professionally recorded audio tracks and videos you can use. And he also has some spare sample mixes. Ooh, I don't know. We need all that information. How much is that? $90, I guess. And then there's also Cambridge MT. Let's see. So there's this one, this Mixing Secrets. You can go download. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. You'll download piles of these tracks. There's like all different genres, from blues and funk and pop and punk and metal, whatever. Any of these things. So if you ever need stuff to practice mixing on, that's the stuff. So anyway, so first of all, let's just look at the basic compressor stuff. I'm just gonna take a snare top here. Just gonna loop a section of this. Hold on. Let's see, how much should I loop here? Well, that's going to get annoying real fast. Hold on, let me see if... Maybe I'll split one of these out and we'll just listen to it by itself. Yeah, let's do that. Okay, so let's loop this for a measure. I'm going to throw on, you could use anything. I'm going to put on our intuition compressor, which hopefully is going to get some serious changes in a little bit, but let's just see what this does off the bat. I'm going to zero this thing out. And let's go. Okay. So here's your regular controls. If you don't, I know this is going to be super basic. You guys can get mad, but there's more going on here. So here's your threshold control. This is going to tell you, in fact, let me just turn down the actual output for now. Threshold control just determines what level the compressor is going to act at. If your threshold's above everything, it's just going to ignore the audio. Nothing's going to happen for the most part. Of course, there are compressors that actually change things, whether or not you're actually doing anything with it. But let's get into the theoretical world here. So if I put this threshold line below one of these peaks, it's actually going to do something. Your compression ratio is how much... Boy, what's the easy way to say this? It's how much the signal's going to be turned down after it passes the threshold, in theory. So let me make a zero attack and zero release. It's going to get a little bit crunchy here, but that's okay. So let's the higher the ratio, the more it's going to squish. So let's do a little squish. Let's do some loops here. Okay, so it's barely changing anything. Actually, let's totally smash this thing. So it's not changing by much. I'm going to turn it way up. See, I just totally turned the whole top beginning of this snare sound off, right? Oh, sorry, 1 second. Hello, Kyler, Music School. Okay, sorry. So still have some real world stuff going on here. Okay, so most of the time you're going to see in these compression tutorials or whatever, you're going to see 4-to-1. All right. That's just the ratio. Let's see if we can pull up a Wikipedia or something with the compression ratios. Ooh, they have... I guess I better put audio. Okay, here's the first thing that pops up in Google, which who knows if it's going to be any good or not. Audio compressor ratio explained. And it showed that it had a really good picture on it, but now I'm not seeing anything, so now I don't trust this anymore. All right, let's try something else. Produce like a pro. Let's take a look. Maybe. Okay, so here you go. So here's your compression ratio. See, so infinity to 1, as soon as it passes the threshold, it just gets completely squashed. That's like what we call a brick wall limiter. Of course, with the brick wall limiter, you have another you have the time constants. Oh God, time constants to deal with as well. But we'll take a look at that in a second. Here's 1-to-1. It does nothing, even though it's gone over the threshold. 2-to-1. It's squishing 2 decibels for every 1 decibel, or it's squishing 1 decibel for every 2 decibels it goes over. And here I am forgetting. Let's see. A gain ratio is just a relationship between input and output level. Most compressors have 2-to-1, 4-to-1, and 8-to-1 ratio settings. I don't know about that. At 2-to-1, for every 2 dB of input signal, 1 dB is outputted. So at 2-to-1, for every 2 decibels it goes over the threshold, the output only goes up 1 decibel. At 4-to-1, for every 4 decibels it goes over the ratio, 1 decibel comes out. So you can see this right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can actually see the ratio here. Yeah, I'm glad Warren wrote this down a lot easier than I did. Okay, so now you got the ratio down. Next thing is your attack and release. In our compressor's case, you got to hold, but let's just see what these things do, okay? And actually, we have some oscilloscope functions in this thing, so I'm going to make the input and output kind of stand apart here for a second. Is that going to help? That may not help. Let me just put them back together. Okay, so let's give some compression here. See, attack time. It's how long does it take before that compressor's all the way compressing? It's not a delay, because there's still a curve to it. There's going to be a shape. If you were to look at this stuff in Plug-in Doctor, but you can kind of think of it as a delay. If I watch, I'm going to squash the crap out of this thing. Okay, hold on. Let's just go way masticate it. Okay. Even though I say it's not a delay, if I hold this thing a little bit later, you're going to start hearing it snap through. In this case, even though I have all that minus 47 dB going here, it's still, you barely hear it compressing. Here, I'm going to turn it off. You hear that? So all that is, that's not even, it's like a 30 millisecond attack, but I'm going to start turning that back down. Now we're starting to lose the input, right? Okay, so that's the attack time. That's how long it takes before the compression is all the way in. There's different shapes to this stuff. We will have different shapes in this compressor later, but don't right now. The other one that you're going to see a lot is the hold control. The release control. So that's how long it takes before it turns all the way back up. So see this. Let me mellow this out a little bit. And I'm going to do a little bit of makeup so you can actually hear this thing. So you hear how long it takes for that to come back up? So here's a really short release. And if the release is too fast, especially on low frequency stuff, you'll kind of get a it'll start to distort because the compressor's detector's actually just riding on the waveform. So that's what release is. It's how long does it take for the compressor to completely let go after the threshold's been, after it's gone back down below the threshold. So let's look at, like, what would you normally do if you want one of those gunshot snare sounds here? Let's do kind of a standard, maybe 200 millisecond. Ignore this hi-hat stuff. I could put a gate on here and then we get rid of it, but forget that for now. What I'm going to do is hold that compressor down long enough for the body to just be one level, and I'm going to let the very beginning come through to kind of smack. Okay, so here's your regular snare sound. So here's kind of like a vintage setting here, like kind of let a good thwack out of the stick, right? But usually you can hear more like gunshot kind of like, it's gonna be pretty fast nowadays. Let's get a little bit more. And so if this were paired with a with the reverb, this would really kind of give you that gunshot kind of sound. Now snare's being held down. It's like, it's weird that it actually makes it feel louder, because that's what your ears do when you hear something that's too loud. Your ears go into compression. So this is that sound. This is it's not quite how you'd make the smackiest one in the world, but really need to throw a reverb after this. Okay, so that's your main controls on the compressor: threshold, ratio, attack, and release. In case of some compressors and a lot of noise gates, you also have a hold control. That's the amount of time that the compressor is going to stay on even after the threshold's been, after it's gone back down below the threshold. In a noise gate, same thing. So like once you open that gate, it's going to stay on for the hold control before the release curve starts. So these are, usually you won't have a hold control though, but in case you do, that's what it does. The knee control, let's see if we can find a good picture of that. Compressor, knee. Okay, there's Pro Audio Files, not sure who this is, but so your knee is just, oh, it's always an ad, right? The knee is right, what happens right at the threshold. Does it immediately start compressing, or does it kind of start a little bit earlier and end a little bit later, kind of a more mellow thing? You can sometimes get a more mellow sound out of a soft knee. I don't know that we use them that much when you're really trying to make all these attacky sounds and stuff, but it can certainly work for like vocals. Works well for like spoken word stuff. That's what the knee control is. Sorry, one second. It's like super busy time right now. Oh, man, everybody's gonna call me right now. Sorry about that. Okay, so what else we got? So the biggies now. This is I'm gonna try to use a whiteboard. I don't know how well this is gonna work. Sorry. There's a couple other things to look at. So, the way the compressor listens to tell what to do, how to determine the level, and how to determine how long things are, is we call it the detector. It detects your audio level. And so in some cases, you don't want the wrong thing triggering your compressor. Let's see, what's a good example? Let me go to these overheads here. Let me take a listen real quick and see if these got some kick drum in them. Okay, perfect. Okay, let's say you're really interested in taming the snare in these drum overheads, but kick drum keeps triggering the compressor. Let's see what happens here. Well, in this case, it's actually the snare that's triggering it. But let's say the kick drum was triggering it. Okay, you can see them right here. These two little. In fact, if you just put the threshold down, it'll actually get them. Okay, there we go. Let's say we want it to pretty much ignore the kick. So here's your side chain of the compressor. This is a signal running in parallel that is going to tell the detector what to listen to. In this case, I'm telling it to still listen to the input, but I'm going to filter the input without changing the actual audio that's going out of the compressor. Or let me show you what I mean. So in this case, we're looking at this overhead. Here's the kick drum right here, low frequency. I'm going to put a high pass filter on there. So now you hear it's not listening to the kick drum anymore, right? Watch. Here's the before. So we're going to have it ignore that. So this is key listen mode. Your compressor may call it something else, detector listen or whatever. This is how you can hear what the detector's actually listening to. So I'm going to take it back out of key listen mode, but it's keeping these filters in. And now it should be pretty much ignoring those kick drums. Okay? Or let's say we wanted to kill that snare. A lot of times people use compressors as snare eaters. So let's listen to that. Find the snare and try and actually duck that part out of it somehow. There's a snare. Still acting on the snare, but nowhere near as hard, right? Or, actually, let's make the snare eater preset here. So let's find the snare and just target that area. So every time this thing hears that, we want it to go, okay? Here's without it. Okay, so it pretty much leaves everything else alone except for eats that snare. So that's your key listen. Let's go back to the snare track here. Now this isn't necessarily going to be that important compared to what happens like on a noise gate, but I'm going to look ahead now because apparently people may not know what that is. Okay, let's get back on our snare. Okay. Okay, if we really look, even if we have a really short attack, some of it's still getting through. Okay, but if we do a look ahead, it's going to delay the track by a certain amount. So the detector's actually going to be listening ahead of time before the sound actually hits. So it'll already be compressing. Now, we're not doing any time travel here. So on a live track, this would be a problem, right? You either have to delay the track and end up with a bunch of phase problems or delay everything by that same amount. But when you're in mix mode, you can use plug-in delay compensation. As long as your DAW is sensible and modern, it'll handle this for you. So let's turn some of this up. Notice this thing's squishing ahead of time, right? So let's do a full makeup here. Hold on. So if I bring the track up to the same level, at least to the snare, look at that. This track is now slamming, right? Put some more look ahead on here. Actually, now we're past the snare, so you see where that gap is, right? You usually only need a very small amount. However, low frequencies take a long time to build up. So if you're trying to trigger on like a kick drum or whatever, you may need a lot more look ahead, and I mean a lot. Sometimes like 20 milliseconds for a noise gate. If you're just listening to the low end, the high end's much quicker, but something to be aware of. So we're pretty much there. Let me show you. Okay, I'm gonna try this whiteboard. Sorry. Okay, so oh boy, let's say you got 2 tracks. This is kick, and this is bass. Wow, that's really, really, really not helpful. Thank you. Okay, so so you have this kick waveform, kick, kick, kick. Then you have a bass. It's like going bass, 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 bass all over the place. And you want to make it so that every time the kick hits, the bass gets turned down. We talk about side chains and stuff. So the way we're going to do that is the bass track is going to have a compressor. And the kick track is actually going to send an audio signal to it, but it's only going to go in the detector input. The audio coming out is not going to be the kick drum. It's going to be the bass still. But the detector is going to listen to the kick drum. Now, if you have a... this is kind of crazy for me because when we were first making Reaper, there wasn't that much available with sensible routing, but I thought by now every DAW would be able to really let you route whatever to wherever, just like a patch bay would. But sadly, it's not the case. So it's maybe tricky to do in your DAW, but hopefully there's a way to do it. So what we're going to do is send the kick drum channel into the compressor detector input, and that compressor will be on the bass guitar. And we're going to make it so every time the kick hits, the bass guitar is going to turn down. So let's see. So I'm using Reaper here. So in that case, we're going to make this into a 4 channels in that track. Every track in Reaper can have, I think, 128 track channels, which are like internal channels. So you can route. You can actually do like a matrix view and do all this patching and stuff, but it's beyond what we want. So the input is going to be 1 and 2. It's going to be channels 1 and 2. The detector input is going to be 3, 4. That's how I'm going to set it up. You can actually set this up differently, but it's how we're going to do it here. So the kick drum is going to send its audio into the compressor on that track's 3, 4 input, and the bass guitar's audio is going to go in 1 and 2 and come out 1 and 2. Okay, so let's do that. See, that whiteboard's not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Okay, so let's go find we got our kick track, and our bass. I'm going to go stick these right next to each other. Could actually just put it inside the same thing as the drum, but let's check out this bass first. Yeah. I don't know. Am I supposed to be showing this? Very cool Ampeg SVT there. Anyway. These actually play really well together, but lots of times the bass will start to really mud up once you put the let's put the kick sub in and see what happens. In this case, this is the craziest part. when you have well recorded parts with good players, sometimes you can't even get the problems that you're trying to show because they already anticipate how not to make them. But bass requires a lot of energy, so you still will get way more output than you want when these things hit together, like when a bass gets struck at the exact same time as the kick. Let's see where this is. So the first note, all right, not that note, this note, that note, that note. Anyway, it might be good to just duck this stuff out of the way anyway. So let's do that. So in the case of Reaper, you could do it by dragging this down here. Actually, no, I'm dragging the wrong way. Sorry. I'm going to take the highs of the kick because, like I said earlier, it takes a little while for low notes to trigger a detector compared to high notes. So I'm just going to use the tick part of this sound. And I could even sidechain it more. Like I could filter it a little bit. We're going to do that, actually. So I'm going to take this ticky part of the kick, and I'm going to send that into the bass. In this case, I'm going to send it to 2 new channels. That's going to be 3 and 4. Or actually, he already had that routed. This must have already came with something. So I have this post-fader, post-pan. I'm going to do pre-fader, post-effects. So whatever effect I have on it, like you'd probably have a noise gate on here so that only the gated signal would be feeding the side chain. So that's going into there. So let's make sure that I'll put the compressor in here. And what I'm going to do, see this one, in Reaper's case anyway, it has 4 in and 2 out on this compressor or whatever. 3 and 4 I'm going to use for the sidechain input. You can see that here, hopefully. 3, 4 sidechain input. We could be using Recomp or many other compressors that will let you use this same kind of thing. So what that means is the kick drum is going to be the detector if I choose to use the sidechain. So if I normally do it, so let's just put the bass guitar on here. I'll turn off the kick for now. Bass is just acting normal. Whatever's triggering the bass is going to trigger the bass, right? And if we listen to the sidechain, it's just giving it its own input. Let me do. Actually, if we do key listen. So here's the kick drum. So if I turn on the sidechain input and I put the key listen on, we're listening to the kick drum now, right? Okay, so let's see what happens now. We'll take it out of key listen. So we're going to make it so that every time the kick hits, it's really going to slam this bass out of the way. I'm going to start with the slow release, and we're going to ramp this up. Or start with the fast release, sorry. So you see the kick drum going right here, right? And it's distorting because it's coming out so fast. So we're going to make this a little bit longer. Make it about as long as the kick drum, honestly. Okay, you hear it stealing little bits of this bass now? And with like EDM music where you hear the dance kind of pumping, that's how you make this effect. I'm going to show you something else in a second, but let's get this more realistic. That sounds horrible by itself, right? But once you got them going together, making that sound that the bass guitar is playing, or the kick drum is playing the bass guitar. If you really want this to work well, you're probably going to need some look ahead. And if you're really trying to do it the EDM way, where especially if you have a drum sample that's going to be the same length all the time, that's when the hold control on the compressor comes really handy. So let's let's just assume that this kick drum is about like 80 milliseconds. So I'm going to actually shorten this release, but I'm going to make this hold. It's just going to hold for 80 milliseconds no matter what. And let's watch what happens here. Let me bypass it. Oops, sorry. Hopefully you can see these squares. You see how like squaring off that is it's kind of a function of the that's the hold control. Hold control is just holding it squished for that long. And even with the kick drum, that sounds pretty horrible, doesn't it? But let's put this together. In here. And what you probably would want to do even ahead of this is actually run a regular compressor on the bass first. So in Reaper, I could actually rename these. Let me see. Rename instance. So I'm going to call this one compressor for bass. I'm going to call this one hard chain kick. Or you might just want to call this a ducker, because that's you do the same effect with like delays or reverbs, so that you duck the sound while it's being played, and then the delays happen afterwards. It's a really cool guitar trick. Maybe take a look at that. So first, before this side chain thing even happens, I'm gonna kind of clip out some of these peaks here that are kind of growly, a little bit too growly. Now in this case, this compressor has a limiter as well. And this one is just like a brick wall. It's just going to slam the tops off of things. So let me turn that on. This is going to clip out all the peaks. See, like if you really slam a limiter, like that's nasty, right? I mean, I'm distorting the hell out of it, but it's actually not that bad in the mix. Here's a soft limiter. Might be a little bit too mellow for this. Yeah, I need to change it back to hard. Okay, so now I'll turn the sidechain back on. Okay, let me show another thing here. So here's the lead guitar. I've been telling people since the dawn of time, even though Reaper now has like these spectral peaks, it makes it a little bit easier to do this. If you can record a DI, like look at this, okay. Let me just listen to this real quick. Okay, so the mic'd distorted guitar amp track, look at it, it's just a blob, right? You can't tell what in the world's going on. How about, let's try this 57 over here. Right here. If you want to edit it, look how much easier this DI is to edit. Like you can tell exactly what note is getting hit when. We can use this DI for a trick here. So let's put a delay. Let's say I'm going to have a compressor in there in a second, so we'll deal with that in a second. How about spaceship delay? Spaceship delay. I'm going to send this track to... I'm going to send the guitar track to the delay. Let's hear this first. Let me sync it with the host. Let's do a ping pong delay. A little bit of feedback, and let's do like eighth note. Yes, that gets pretty smeary. Now I could try and have the track duck the delay whenever the picks are hitting, so that it kind of gives you a little bit more percussion, tells you when the actual attack is. But there's just not enough left on this distorted track. It's just blobs. But this DI track will do it. So let's send the DI into the delay track, and I'm going to put it on channels 3 and 4. And I'm going to put a compressor after that. And we're going to sidechain with that DI. So if we let's listen to this. So this is the normal compressor path. Now here's the sidechain. There's going to be the DI. Much more percussive, tells us what's going on, right? So I'm going to actually set a pretty high ratio here. Well, let me check on his teacher. Okay. Hold on one second. All right, sorry about that. This is a real time, real world. Gotta do what you can to keep moving here. Okay, so let's try ducking this delay. Solo these two tracks. I'm gonna take the DI out of the main send. So let's just put the delay on. Lead. Mute everything else. Let's try this again. Yeah, let's try that without the side chain. Oops, sorry. So that's just gonna hold it down the whole time in order to make it work. Let me see. But if I give it the side chain, yeah, cut right through. Versus you could use this hold control to tell how long you want those pick attacks to be. Like you can make a really short release. Okay, so hopefully make some real compressor videos one of these days, but this should be a little basic thing on how they work and what the controls do and why you would use them this way or that way. And holy wow, it's been 45 minutes. All right, I guess I'll see you